opportunities. What circular opportunities are there in the rural, urban, and the coastal areas? We all grew up in the rural areas, right? Right? I like a very interactive session. We all grew up in the rural area, and we just came to the urban area not too long ago, maybe probably towards the start of your adulthood, right? If there's a place where successful implementation of circularity is done, and it is not documented in the rural area. I grew up in a small farm where manure from the cows could be taken to the shamba, right? And then from there you harvest, it is taken. The rotting produce from the market is collected by pig farmers, cow farmers, chicken farmers, and then it is taken back to the farm. And that is an aspect of circularity. But the problem is that we do not document that. And the people implementing that, they're also not aware that that is a concept of circularity. And how can you be able to scale something that you're not documenting? So those are some of the challenges. When we come to the urban sector, circularity is mainly being implemented in areas where it's informal, right? But we say we stop referring to it as informal. It is formal, yet to be formalized, right? Because when you say it is informal, you are categorizing a certain group of people to fit a certain box, and once you fit yourself in that box, you cannot be able to leave it. So in the informal sectors, mostly around the low-income areas, that is where you will see most of the circularity aspects being implemented. But also the same problem is documentation, right? I'm not familiar on the coastal side, and I'm glad that one of the panelists is also from Coast, who's going to give us a bit of insight so that we can be able to understand what circularity looks like, especially in Port and the Brikama area. So with no further ado, I would like to introduce my panel before Michelle is on my neck about time. So the first panelist is going to be an entrepreneur. His name is Eddie Gitonga. Eddie, please make your way up. And please give him a round of applause. Eddie is an innovator. He's the CEO and founder of T-Beam. He's a technology beam, and one of the startups that we incubated at Circular Innovation Hub. It is good to see how much he has been able to scale all through in this sector. Eddie is going to make an introduction and maybe just give more of an overview so that you can be able to understand further what his background is. Next is Cynthia Wainaina from Kepro. Give her a round of applause, please. Kepro is an it's a producer responsibility organization. She will further tell us more on the impact that they've had in terms of opportunities around circularity. Next is a lady called Anastasia Yalu. Next is Calvin Otieno, who is also a Danida fellow. He's not yet in. All my panelists are on Kenyan time. Next is Madam Susan Omigo. Fantastic. Yes, I think that is my entire panel. I think I should come closer so that we have this discussion. Maybe you can start with a brief introduction of yourself, your background, so that the audience can be able to familiarize with your background. We can start with Madam Susan.
Good morning once again. You already had my name, right? Susan Omingo. Yeah, so I'm the chairperson of Pwani Circular Economy Association. It's a member-based organization that actually acts as an umbrella body for actors within the waste value chain in the coastal region of Kenya. So at Pwani Circular Economy Association, we work around several thematic areas, and one is capacity development. We also work around market linkages, advocacy, the huge on advocacy. And last but not least, we also work around research and development for
Oh, great. So my name is Eddie Kitonga. When we get in the formal spaces like this, but when we get out there, you can call me Bini One, because I'm all about waste bins, and not just waste bins, smart waste bins. So we're going to be talking more about that. But besides that, being an entrepreneur and innovator, I also run some Kenyan programs for US nonprofit called Paragon Institute of Innovation, where we basically go into universities and design circular economy workshops. We really want students to understand, the core concepts about circular economy. Yes, and we also provide small grants to them so that they can build MVPs. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, my name is Cynthia Regina, as Alia mentioned. I work at KEPRA. KEPRA is the Kenya Extended Producer Responsibility Organization. It's quite a mouthful, so KEPRA in short is much better. What we do is we are championing the polluter pays principle in Kenya, where we are now mandating producers to be responsible for their post-consumer non-hazardous packaging waste. So we get to act on their behalf. Part of our programs, one is awareness, and as Susan almost mentioned, we are somehow an entrepreneurial support organizations. We run a program targeting local businesses with circular economy solutions, and I think there is one business here that is part of our program, Ecoloop. Yes. So hopefully through the discussions we'll get to learn more about what we do and how we intersect with the circular economy space.
Fantastic. As you have heard, our panel is quite diverse, and everybody will be speaking based on their background, their experience, and certain projects that they have also implemented around this. So back to our topic, which is circular opportunities in Kenya, in the rural, urban, and the coastal space. I'll start with Eddie. Eddie being a founder of Technology Beam, and as a startup, as you started as a youth, I don't know whether you're still a youth. Maybe we just give us your work in terms of how can tech enable smart waste collection models be adapted or scaled to address waste management challenges in the rural and also in the urban areas.
Thank you, Susan, for that. So I know Susan is going to ask me what did not mention CIH. So I'm one of the entrepreneurs that got it supported the Circular Innovation Hub when I started my project, and I'm grateful for the milestones. We're also working together now as a business coach, like trying to train SMEs on the business development projects we're working on the textile waste. I would say I'm also not a town boy. I'm a village boy, but I got myself to Nairobi. So I'll just give a small story. So I am young at heart. I just turned 36. So and the African Union age gap is up to 40, so I believe I was in that youth. After clearing my high school, I came to Nairobi to look for opportunities. Also doing my hands, but I really couldn't understand why people in Nairobi could not use beats. And Nairobi was very dirty back then. I think that was around 20 years ago, and that really, it had me sleepless nights. So first thing, there were not enough beans in towns around Nairobi, and that got me thinking, what can I do about it? So Kitambo, you guys know, in apartments we used to have, I think landlords used to build something that looked like a small pit to put in waste, and that was really a lot, because before devolution, waste was being it was a mandate for municipal council back then. So that really got really disturbed, because I started at CBO. We were doing cleanups, but we never got places cleaned, and it's said to build a bin. So when I built this bin, it took me I would say 7 years to have it as an intellectual property, and from a design to a ready products. So for the opportunities, I would say, especially, I'll talk about rural, peri-urban and urban areas. Probably my colleague here is going to touch about coastal places. I would say that now with the evolution, waste now has been a menace. You guys can agree with me that now you're not only talking about Dandora. If you guys have seen the news, if you go to Laikipia right now, I think we have people taking each other to court because the dam site is full, and we need to look for another site or chase people because the places are unlivable. If you go to Mombasa as well, I think that's the same thing, Kajiado. So I would think now that waste now has become a problem even in the rural places. And what I would say about the opportunities, waste is such an opportunity because now we've moved from the linear economy, now we're going to the circular economy where we have to reuse everything. I would say for me, I have been able to interact with different counties and asking them how can we especially get into the waste separation, because the core mandate of TBIN is to educate people on waste separation at source and using tech. So to finish up, so the TBIN is a smart, intelligent, solar-powered segregated waste bin that is supposed to educate people on waste separation at source by providing affordable internet. I think I have answered questions or opportunities around that. Yes.
Yes, you have. I think the biggest challenge with waste is separation, especially from the household. So there's a lot of consumer awareness that needs to go into factoring in when it comes to waste management. I think that also touches to the Pwani and the coastal region, right? So that then we understand, because when we talk about coastal region, we're talking about also the blue economy, how that is affected, and also there is the urban and the rural parts of coastal area. So maybe we can just touch on what are the unique challenges like ocean plastic pollution and marine degradation, and how Pwani circular economy has been able to tailor some of the circularity models to leverage on the blue economy and support livelihoods in the area.
Thank you very much, Faith. Okay, at Pwani Circular Economy Association, actually, in light of that question, we focus on three things. One, we work around creating opportunities within the waste, and then two, protecting our blue economy, and of course now improving the livelihoods of our people around the communities and the coast. So to begin with, first of all, I would say that we create jobs, or rather creating jobs and protecting the ocean go hand in hand. And yes, it's true, being a place where we have the largest water body, which is of course the ocean, and of course we also now have the port there and the industries that are already there. There's a lot of pollution that is happening, there are a lot of plastics that are produced, and so what we do is, the way we work in is, one, we promote segregation of this waste, especially at source, and this we do at household levels. Just recently we did a pilot of the same with a number of partners, so that we get our household to be able to segregate the waste at source. Of course, this helps reduce what ends up in the oceans to protect, to reduce the pollution. And then we also, we do cleanups, but we don't just do simple beach cleanups. We're actually promoting doing beach cleanups for value, whereby after cleanups are done, you find that there are a lot of recyclables that are recovered. So we don't simply just have these cleanups done and then the waste are just, sent away to the dump site. No. What we do is we have the cleanups done for value in a way that after the cleanup has been done, we have the collected waste actually sorted and segregated, and what can be recycled, of course a big chunk of it is normally plastics, is actually connected to the manufacturer, to the recyclers, who can actually make use of this and reduce what ends up in the ocean. So through this you realize that, one, we reduce a lot of plastic pollution getting the water bodies. And at the same time, we are also promoting the coastal enterprises, because through that we have those who actually do the upcycling, the recycling, and when that happens, a lot of opportunities are created and livelihoods are actually improved because of now the revenue that comes out of what they normally do. Because that when we do that, we engage with a lot of groups. We have even the BMUs that we work with. BMUs are main beach management units, and some of these BMUs, we help them to be able to actually collect even the fishing nets from the oceans. And these fishing nets, instead of them being just led to get back and cause further pollution, they're actually upcycled. And through that, they're able to even make more money and their livelihoods are improved.
Very good. I think that you have mentioned you're also linking with producers and manufacturers of these plastics, and how you can be able now to integrate the whole process of the recycling process, so that then you can also have the manufacturers in the process to come to absorb the waste that cannot be recycled. I think when you look at the data that has been published, very few, I think it's only 5% that can be recycled plastics that are produced. So it's good to bring in the manufacturers, and that brings it to Cynthia, who works for KEPRO. When you're talking about producer responsibilities, maybe you could also share what are the collaborative frameworks, multi-stakeholder partnerships that you observe that have been successful to bridge the corporate sustainability and also ground level execution in different counties.
Okay, thank you, Susan. And hopefully by the end of the day, as I answer the question, I'll be able to demystify APR as a charity approach. It's not really charity. Being at the center of it all, recognizing that EPR came into force, I think about 2 years ago, through the Extended Producer Responsibility Regulations. Although it was preceded by the Sustainable Waste Management Act of 2022, I can say as KEPRO we have made quite a number of strides in that space. And as I answer your question, allow me to just paint a picture of how the current ecosystem looks. As the regulations say, yes, producers are supposed to be responsible for their post-consumer packaging waste. And we do see that there is a challenge, especially when it comes to the recyclability content of their packaging. So at the center of it all, as KEPRO, we're trying to create that awareness and also bring in an aspect of R&D to show these manufacturers that at the end of the day, what they're trying to target is the shelf life of their product. But if you can bring in an alternative to say that you don't necessarily have to use that non-recyclable packaging to protect your product, there is an alternative. So how we do this R&D beyond just working ourselves, we go to the ground, to the local solutions. We cannot necessarily do this by ourselves. So as I earlier mentioned, we have an entrepreneur support project, which we call the KEPRO Circular Economy Accelerator Program, where we bring on board different organizations with different solutions that can try and tackle the waste crisis that we have as Kenya. So in this program, beyond providing business skills, we also provide a bit of access to finance for them to be able to now scale their solutions. So when it comes to that multi-stakeholder collaboration, first of all, we recognize that local solutions are indeed key in helping us bridge the problems that we have. Beyond that is policy, which sits at the nexus as well. With EPR and the Sustainable Waste Management Act being there, we still recognize that enforcement is not 100% there. And I really wish that we could have an EMA representative in this panel to speak on some of the challenges that we are facing. And with the earlier panel, someone had mentioned something to do with organic waste. So organic waste, as per the Sustainable Waste Management Act, is under the county government. It is their responsibility to ensure that we do not have such a problem in Kenya. But clearly, even as you go to the markets, a good example I like giving is Marikiti. Those of us who are in Nairobi, we've been to Marikiti, right? and there's a big section where you have a huge pile of organic waste that just sits there and nothing really happens to it. So beyond awareness, I think we also need to see a bit of empowerment of our local organizations to be able to see the solutions that can come out of this crisis that we face as a nation. On the recyclable waste, again back to that, part of what we do with the local organizations is we work with the waste actors within the value chain. What we say is we do not want to come in and disrupt the ecosystem. Instead, what we want to do is empower the ecosystem, because you cannot really change the ecosystem in one day. But if you empower them one by one across the value chain, you'll get to see those bits of changes. So from waste collectors to waste transporters, to aggregators, to recyclers, part of the EPR fee that we receive, we get to inject into the ecosystem so that they get to recover more for the environment. This is more or less an incentive to support their businesses, so that at the end of the day we get to see, one, a shared responsibility for this waste, and also we get to really recover much of what is being put into the environment. And lastly, as I talk of collaboration, this is not really in the sense of collaboration, but it's part of awareness. Because as we talk of the policies, the policy approach, or even the NGO solutions, we also get to focus on the consumer bit. As we sit here, all of us are consumers, right? Today we are going to consume something, yes? And what do we do with what we've consumed? So as I spoke about awareness being one of our key programs, we really put in a lot of investment when it comes to awareness. And by that, I'd just like to ask, has anyone seen our billboard along University Way? We have? Yes. The idea with that billboard was to spark a thought. All that waste that you see within that billboard has come from Nairobi. And if you're a Nairobian, you could have maybe your packaging or your plastic, something you consumed, being part of that billboard. So, as my colleague here spoke about segregation of waste at source, our awareness centered to consumers targets segregation at source as a key mandate. As you may be aware, the Sustainable Waste Management Act speaks to all waste generators need to separate their waste at source. We are waste generators. So how many of us here separate our waste at source? 1, 2. Okay. So the question is, where are the rest of us? So as we even look to these other stakeholders and we are questioning them, what are they doing to help the current ecosystem, to improve even waste management in Kenya? The other question we need to ask ourselves is, what am I doing as a Kenyan to improve waste management today?
Fantastic. I think we can give a round of applause for that. Segregation of waste begins at home, and it will still continue being the gospel that we preach. But unfortunately, we only have one bin in the house, right? And we all dump everything in that bin, including wet and dry waste, right? And we are at fault. And there's nothing wrong with that. But it starts with awareness and then implementation. And I'm glad that she has also touched on an aspect of the KEPRO Accelerator Program, which then now touches to Eddie's next question. As an entrepreneur, there is access to finance and what that financing looks like. There's different types of financing that are available in the market, especially for circularity in this decade. You could just touch on your perspective and also your experience in terms of access to finance, and just mention a bit of what are the operational challenges that you have faced on that, and what revenue models you have also identified that can be resilient.
Amazing, pretty important questions. I know you have entrepreneurs here. Before I answer you, I want to really appreciate KEPRO. I worked with KEPRO last year on your consumer-led transformation project, because when it comes to really on waste separation at source, we really need all hands on deck, as she said, from aggregators to private waste collectors. At the same time, as a private waste collector, it becomes expensive because you need, probably if you're working for a gated community, you need an extra bin, which means an extra cost, which means an extra bag, which means an extra cost. But does this trickle down to the consumer, which is good? Like we mean that if you pay 500, then you need to be charged 1,000 too. So that's another something that we really try to get around. So on to answer on your question, I would say it's a roller coaster for entrepreneurs and for innovators, especially when you're looking for funding. Short story, I think before I got my very first support, I had more than 500 applications. And there's something we were discussing the other day about credibility and clients and credibility. So before you get clients, you need to be credible. And for you to be credible, you want clients. That is also another food for us. And as a startup, you have this idea. First, you have to pay for IP rights, which is also very expensive, to pay the lawyer, go to get your papers right, and then you're really excited. So you go to the Ministry of Environment, have a very big idea, needs funding, and then they're looking at you, what are you telling us about? You want to see the products, and you need money to build the product. And where do you get that money? So what I would say is resilience. Like you keep on applying for this. At some point, I became immune to rejections. So every time you got, hey, you have a very good idea, but we want to see the product, so we can't finance you. But at some point, I would say, organizations like Circular Innovation Hub, they'll not just invest in someone who's built something. They'll invest in an idea, and I think ESOs really also need to take this to thought. The ESOs that are here, we have very brilliant grassroots ideas out there, but they really lack credibility because you don't have a product. Yes, you have that idea on paper in your mind, a very good business plan, how to become a successful business, but you don't have a product. So I believe more ESOs out there need to really focus on ideation, and after ideation then provide just a small MVP, like what we're doing with the American organization. You can imagine a comrade akona idea in the circular economy space, lakini hana hiyo 10,000 hata kwenda tu kufanya 3D printing, hana hiyo pesa. Akitisha mzazi anaulizwa, maybe is a second year, anaulizwa is the project ya final year ama unaitisha pesa ya nini? But this student has a very good idea. So why not provide $100 for them to build an MVP, and then with this MVP we can build a real product. So I believe first, I would say it's for ESOs to really think about education first. Secondly, I also want to really thank the organizers of this, Dennis and the whole Denmark Embassy and Tanke for organizing this, because I believe there are so many opportunities in the circular economy. Like when you look at opportunities in the circular economy space, they're numerous. At the same time, for private waste collectors, now let me get into the business perspective. So you have your revenues at the end of the month and your fundraising. And nowadays, for circular economy, you find that circular economy projects can be very capital intensive. You really need a lot of money, but your revenues at the end of the month are not adding up. Probably you're making 5K USD per month. You want to fundraise 2.5 USD, and your months, according to the investor, when you get to $100 million, we finance from $100 million. So here it's for investors, because you have different types of investors. Impact investors that are looking at your progress and looking at your traction and your milestones. I think I've really talked a lot, but When it comes to financing, I really think and I really want to articulate that. It's about not giving up. It's about taking a day at a time and just trying to be better than yesterday. That is how I sum it up. Yeah.
Thank you. I think you can give him a round of applause on that. Fundraising is quite a quagmire, if I might say. There is always money. People say there is no money, there is money. But the problem is finding an investor that is going to be compatible with your business model. Sometimes you look for investors and they come and change your entire business strategy model, everything, objectives, to a point where now you're implementing something you're not even familiar with. So looking for investors who are compatible and they understand your vision and they understand your mission. And also another challenge, sorry, I'm also speaking on this a lot, but this is my background. When you're looking for investors, allow them to understand what circularity in African countries, in Kenyan perspective, looks like. Because they will come with ideas from Europe and they want to implement, copy and paste the same thing in the Kenyan aspect. You need to introduce them, sensitize them to understand what circularity looks like in Kenya, in the Kenyan aspect, in African aspect. I think African aspect cuts quite across and it's very familiar and very similar within those countries. So that you do not find yourself losing your idea and your project and your primary objectives. I think my next question is to Susan. Maybe you can also touch on how coastal circular networks better collaborate with the inland urban areas, like Nairobi, for example, so that they can create a unified nationwide trade and recycling network.
Thank you very much, Susan. I believe a strong circular economy requires counties to work together, not separately. So, for instance, we could actually have the coastal counties to collect and sort these recyclables, and then counties like Nairobi could actually provide, the industries and the manufacturing spaces whereby these recyclables can actually be now converted into reusable materials. Okay, then it will also help to have a way whereby, if you could talk of maybe even the regional leadership of the circular economy. For instance, there's one I remember we just began the other day, where we have different umbrella bodies for people in the space that come together, and actually we've come together and we've also been brought together by a number of organizations. KEPO is one of them. We were actually with KEPO just this week on Tuesday, we were working on the EPR validation theme. So we find that a lot of the regional leaders will now come together from the different counties so that we can put our heads together on what we can do together is at a national level, of course, backed by our different backgrounds from the different counties that we come from. And I would say this actually is really going to help in this, because we find that when we share ideas, when we bring our heads together, and you realize that even the organizations we work with actually work with several of us in different counties. So when we come together, also as people from the different counties, especially at a national level, you'll find that there will be more impact. That we will do, we will focus on who is strong where, and that is not everybody to be able to do what they can do best. And at the same time, it also helps us to be able to avoid duplication or repetition of what has already been done. Like for instance, we had a scenario whereby I was just talking to the KEPO CEO about the problem we had recently about segregation of waste and so on, because that actually came in. I think that was 2 weeks ago, right? About 2 or 3 weeks ago. And you realize that that is something that we had already done before as Point Circular Association with a number of partners. And already available, there was already available even granular data on segregation of waste and source. So what is actually required, or rather what is now required at that point, was just now to build on what has already been done. So that only happens when you find people working, in isolation. But when we come together and even such kind of plans are brought in or suggested by different partners, you will realize that no, you don't need to do this, you don't need to pour funds again into this, it's already been done. So what you need to do is now, how do you build on where the previous people that did it reached, so that we are able to even move to the next level and be able to even save more resources to do, better things together. So yes, I believe that working together, especially the different counties, it would be very important and that can even be able to create more impact in the circumstances.
Thank you so much for that. We are being reminded to be time conscious here. So my last question to Ms. Cynthia will be, if you can just share from KEPRO's perspective, what circular economy initiatives that you have implemented to ensure that you have included, there was social inclusivity and integrating informal waste pickers such as women and youth, especially in the rural and urban area in Nairobi, or if you have also branched to different counties, what that looks like.
Thank you, Susan. As my colleague had mentioned, the fact that he was part of our awareness workshop, which we call the Consumer-Led Transformation Initiative. So I'll give a bit of background into what this initiative is. It's a 5-year program that is divided into 3 phases. So the first phase is what we say, put it in a bin. So we're going around counties and we're basically now trying to pass the awareness that just put your waste in a bin. And I think we had mentioned it earlier that we still have that problem of people just discarding waste anyhow. So if we start with the first phase of just put it in a bin. Then if we're able to successfully cover all counties, then now we move to the second phase, which is put it in the right bin. So put it in the right bin now touches on segregation at source. It is at this point where now we bring in the different waste actors, including now the informal waste pickers. We've run, actually this year, we transitioned into the second phase, and we've engaged 5 counties, that being Kisumu, Nakuru, Mombasa, forget the other 2. But the idea behind segregation at source is we identify the waste collectors in that region, support them with the collection infrastructure, and then at the end of the day, what we get is proper data on how waste is flowing within that county. So from each county, we get to learn on how waste is being managed. And I think a key thing that we got to understand is different counties approach waste management in different ways. So you'd expect maybe how we handle waste in Nairobi is how waste is being handled in Eldoret, but that is not really the case. And I think a very big inspiration that came to us recently is when we visited Kakuma, and we were doing an awareness workshop at that area, and we realized that, in Kakuma we have the refugees. So the waste actors, you have waste actors who are now the host communities, and you have waste actors who are now the refugees. And for the refugees, they've really taken up waste management as a key business. In fact, if you're here and you want to do something in waste management in Kakuma, I'd really recommend visiting the area, because it's a place that has really taken it up in a positive way. And in such a place, when we talk about, I know you mentioned there's no informal with that, we're not trying to group them in that box, but in that area, formalization has really taken a positive note. Because now when you talk about the key licenses that these actors need to have, best believe they do have them. So the question is, if in Kakuma it can happen, why is it that in Nairobi we're having this pressing challenge of trying to get people to formalize? So if we talk of maybe the licenses, I know one of the key challenges with licenses in waste management is the duplication, where you have the county government issuing, or rather requiring you to apply for a license that NEMA also is charging for the same, and even the cost of it. So how we're also trying to bridge that gap is currently we have a model that we've introduced where we're trying to support informal aggregators to formalize. So what we say is, if you're an aggregator and you have volumes that you're transacting on a monthly basis, good volumes, and you have what we call an EIA license from NEMA, then as KEPRO we can come in and give you the support to get the operation license, that one. the Kikuyu in me is coming out. Yes. The operation license for you to be able to run your business. So this kind of incentive at the end of the day is the proper encouragement for even the youth to take up such businesses, because the key thing is always the capital. But we are now telling you that if you can be able to prove to us that this is a business that you can do and approach us and show us the data that indeed you are transacting good volumes at the end of the day, then we can give you that support to get the proper licenses and also formalize.
Wow, I can't add or divide or subtract from that, but we can just appreciate the panel. And a round of applause, please. Thank you so much. I think from our discussions, you have picked there's quite a lot of opportunities within the circularity sector, whether in the rural, implementing in the rural areas, urban, or in the coastal region. I think what we suffer from is not lack of knowledge, but lack of access of that knowledge, right? You can Google, you can do your research, use your AI tools, but if you do not have that key support, especially for a startup, you're going to really find yourself in certain problems within this ecosystem. But as you have heard, there's opportunities at CIH, there's opportunities at Skepro, Pwani, and also if you want to learn about how to incorporate AI and technology, you have Mr. Eddie with us. So I'll open up to the audience for questions. I will only take 2. And I already see 2 hands. Oh my goodness. I can accommodate the third one. So we can start with the gentleman on near at the back of the line.
Good morning once again, and thank you for the wonderful panel that you